brothers and sisters. I understand that this is a session focused on, what is this bill? I don't know. VBSA? Can anybody say that fluently? Dr. Lal, can you say it? You can't say it, and you are having a seminar on that. That's a predicament of the country with regard to the piece of legislations. Even here we have used the abbreviation VBSA because I don't think no Malayali would be in a position to spell the bill correctly. When this bill was introduced in Parliament, maybe a fortnight before that, I wrote to the minister saying that this bill needs perusal, due diligence, discussions with the stakeholders, as this has got tremendous impact and influence on the higher education. Anyway, the government showed little mercy by referring to a select committee. The joint select committee is yet to take shape. We don't know who are going to be part of it. When I emphasized on the title of the bill, even the title gives out a message. There is a constitutional provision, I think Article 348, which emphatically states that all the bills need to be in English. You can attach a Hindi translation, but it needs to be in English. But last 10 years, if you look at the contours of the legislation that is being done on the floor of the Parliament, many of the bills are in such a language, twisted, not only Hindi, even Sanskrit is being looped in. There was a bill which had Hindi, Sanskrit and English also in it. I mean, 3 languages were incorporated. And you had a bill for nuclear energy and the name of the bill was Shanti. Can you imagine that nuclear and Shanti going together? That's the predicament of the legislative process this country is facing. Last Parliament session passed a bill. I can't even spell the name of the bill. The short form of the bill is G Ramji. G Ramji. Again, like in this higher education bill, there is a Vikasit Bharat. So the government expects Vikasit Bharat to be implemented without having Mahatma Gandhi as part of that Vikasit Bharat. The father of the nation need not be part of the Vikasit Bharat process. 3 criminal bills were passed, replacing IPC, CRPC and Evidence Act. Can you just say what are the 3 criminal bills passed? You are a teacher? Okay. 35% marks. Is it a pass mark? See, those bills which have got tremendous impact on your life, the generations to come, even you and me are unable to even say the name of the bill. Even this bill, even those people who are in the part of the academic community, I don't think it would be easy, legible enough to spell the name of the bill. I told the minister, why do you want to tweak the names of the bill like this? I said, Mr. Pradhan, I understand. It's a country with rich diversity. I am unable to put all this Adhistan and all those things in the bill. I don't understand. Please respect the diversity of this country, at least when you formulate a piece of legislation. Even the judges of the Madras High Court are not in a position to spell the names of the 3 criminal bills. So you and me, supposed to be lesser mortals concerning the legal jurisprudence, shouldn't be ashamed that we are not in a position to spell the name. Now, I was just looking at the notes on this bill. I'm sure that the copy of the bill has been circulated and a concise form of the bill has been formulated. But what I understand, what I derive from this draft bill is that this is against the letter and spirit of the federal constitution. That's the first thing. This intends to have a authoritarian centralization, not only centralization, authoritarian centralization. This has got a strategical functional separation and some sort of an algorithmic discipline. And moreover, this is linked to the market situations. Marketization of the education is most important. We all feel that education should usher in an element of critical inquiry. That's a basis of education. But this bill intends to douse that facet of education. They don't want any inquiry. Leave apart critical inquiry. You know, I have been part of the media discourse. So I happened to read an interview of Albert Einstein, which he gave to New York Times. In that interview, he says so. You know, Einstein was one person who escaped from Germany when Hitler was on his ascent. So in his interview to New York Times, he says that the Germany under Hitler was gripped in something called psychic distemper. Psychic distemper. The translation, Professor Gopinath, would be some sort of a mental illness, right? That means Germany was in the grip of a psychic distemper, which of course we can also see the shades of it in our country too. The reason for Germany plunging into this psychic distemper was precisely because the academic community caved in. The academic community caved in. The students, teachers, professors who were supposed to inculcate a certain level of resistance, perusal, inquiry, they all caved in. If the academic community were to be vigilant, guarded, and had guided the people in a trajectory of much more critical analysis, the psychic distemper wouldn't have gripped Germany. Do you intend to take a cue out of it? This is precisely that is happening in India. The present government doesn't want to have any form of inquiry at all. I always used to harp on the fact that I had the fortune or opportunity to be a student of JNU. Nowadays in Parliament, I always tell that if I say I was a student in JNU, you will say that you are part of an anti-national university. That's what is the nomenclature, the adjective that is attached to JNU. I even told the minister, I am from JNU. For you, it's an anti-national university. I recollect those days when we had debates on anything and everything. The Ganga Daba, all those Dabas which JNU campus used to have. Even now they have Daba, but it's more or less dead chapters. We used to discuss about anything and everything under the sun. Where it is Libya, where it is Ethiopia, where it is Kashmir. But now, you need to be cautious about the topic which you need to take up for even informal discussions. Leave apart the formal seminars. The Palestinian ambassador was complaining to me saying that he was invited for a discourse on the Palestinian issue in JNU. Last minute, the JNU administration cancelled that. An ambassador who is acknowledged, recognized by the Foreign Affairs Department, the government of India, is not at liberty to address the students of a university. We don't need to be mature enough to listen a particular shade of opinion. So see how the higher education has transformed in those years. So this very piece of legislation is targeted as a weapon to make sure that even if there is some remains or reminiscence of a critical evaluation, that also need to be dealt with. Since this is what I speak on the floor of the parliament, I don't have any hesitation in speaking. I know that this is a formal function, but as a member of parliament, you expect me to, give my opinion, that's why I'm saying it. 42nd Amendment, when it all started, see, the framers of the Constitution was very clear. Education need to be a state subject. Such a rich, diverse country, it has to have the cultural ecosystem of that particular state. It shouldn't be taken out of that cultural space in which the education need to be. You can't take out one vertical from that ambience. 42nd Amendment. As you all know, during emergency, education was taken out of the state list and put in concurrent list. The whole plethora of decisions and legislations, guidelines which you have come to have this epistemological break that happened in the Indian Constitution by taking out education and putting it in concurrent list. No, you had we still have a raging battle with the so-called authorities who should manage the universities. Dr. Gobinath is a victim of that. I'm sure about it. You all, I sympathize. I have empathy. The very universities which have been built by the sweat and blood of our people, no, you have absolutely no control over that. The virtual takeover of the higher education. Now, UGC, I recollect the Supreme Court deliberations on this particular issue. I'm sure Dr. Gobinath must have studied about that. It all happened very recently. We all thought that UGC was an organization to guide the higher education rather than to preside over it. See, an organization which was formed to guide, to give suggestions. There were 2-3 pillars of UGC, I remember that. That was what was being talked about. Now, what was the case, Dr. Govinda? That case which appended all those things, that was Gadvi versus State of Gujarat. That was in 2016 or something like that. Gadvi versus. Suddenly, Supreme Court says that, see, there is a clause in Indian Constitution, that is repugnancy. You know what is repugnancy? Anybody who has got a legal blunt here? Can you say? Anybody? Nobody has a legal background here. They're all science, humanities. Dr. Lal, you anchor so many programs which have got legal implications. You don't know what is repugnancy? There is a clause in repugnancy which says that, suppose in concurrent list, if a law passed by a state government clashes with a central legislation, then the legislation passed by the parliament will supersede, right? But what has happened? Even a guidelines issued by the UGC was termed as having superiority over a statute passed by a state assembly. See how it was interpreted. I can understand that a state act and a central act clashes and central act prevails. But an organization which doles out a press release, even the content of the press release needs to have supremacy over a state statute. That was how the Supreme Court interpreted the UGC Act. Along with Tamil Nadu and West Bengal, we also passed a piece of legislation saying that the governor, who has got humongous obligations and duties as a constitutional head of the state, shouldn't be burdened with administrative aspects of a university. That was the narrative. That bill is yet to see the light of the day. Now, somebody may ask, why all of a sudden you have brought in a piece of legislation? Somebody may have a doubt about it. M.M. Punji Commission, which was appointed to look into the functioning of central state relations, Sarkariya Commission, Vengadadaliya Commission, three important commissions, national commissions, and out of that, M.M. Punji, who was the Chief Justice of Supreme Court, he categorically said that the governor should be taken out of all these routine administrative duties, like being a chancellor of a university. And now you'll be surprised, there was a bill brought by none other than Shri Narendra Modi in 2013 in Gujarat. Gujarat Assembly, he passed a bill. You know what was that? Gujarat Universities Amendment. What was that? Anybody has an idea? What was that? What was the content of the Gujarat Universities Amendment Bill 2013? Anybody has a guess? Excuse me? Exactly. Who has done it? None other than the Prime Minister, who was then the Chief Minister of Gujarat. Till the NDA came to power, this was kept in the back burner. 2015, the governor gave assent to that bill. That became an act, statute. So a piece of legislation which reached its logical conclusion, that too passed by the inverted comma model state of Gujarat. When I put inverted comma, be very clear about it. You cannot pass a similar bill in your assembly. Don't you think it's scant discrimination that is happening? The same piece of legislation, nothing, no change anywhere, not even a comma. This is why I say that along with the tweaking of the federal structure, there is an element of political vendetta and discrimination that is seethed in the area of education. Now, on these bills, you know that how it's at a stroke UGC and all these organizations, ICT, everything will end, and a super regulator will come into position. And you have a apex body. I think the note would have detailed about that. The interesting aspect, the higher education of the country, the presence of the states, hardly 2 part-time members in 12-member apex body. omnipotential chairman and the member secretary, effectively the CEO. And even there is no procedure for picking up who should represent the states. Of course, the government of India can pick up the state representative from, say, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, Assam, anywhere. You don't even need to balance the regional aspects of this nation. In the UGC Act, there was a provision that not less than 4 should be part of from the state government. And 6 members out of 12 shouldn't have anything to do with the government. Should be from the academic community, different branches. If suppose somebody was attached to the government of India, you are not even eligible to be a chairman. That was the UGC Act. So even those acts with which I have personal quarrel, even those provisions have been left out, and there is a high level of dose of concentration of power. Now there are 2 clauses which I think this note also would have said. I think clause 47. Any time the government of India can dismantle, any time. Another clause 49, which says that any statute, whether it has been passed or going to be passed, this will supersede. This will supersede. See, if you look at the higher education or education as such, the 74% of the expenditure is borne by the state governments. Hardly 24% by the government of India. Now you will say that 24% is not a small amount. But you know what is the catch there? Which innocent souls may not be aware of the nuances of this so-called 24%. This government brought in a cess, which was a separate cess, that education and health cess. Now it is a combined cess. 4% cess on income tax as education and health. I was looking the budget purpose 25-26. You know what is the amount mopped up by this cess? 94,000 crores have been mopped up by the government of India. So the catch is that this 94,000 crores which have been mopped up by the government of India in the form of cess, you don't need to share with the states. The Finance Commission said 42% of all the revenue generated need to be dwelt to the states also. 42% disbursed to the states. After Jammu and Kashmir unilaterally became a union territory. When I say unilateral means, suppose for the first time, the Article 3 of the Indian Constitution was misinterpreted in such a way that the Parliament has the competence to convert a full-fledged state to a union territory at the drop of a hat. Suppose, imagine that a particular political party which is ruling at the center is not in a position to capture power or win the state of Kerala. Imagine. You need to, imagination need not have any sound basis, but still, imagine, hypothetically. So central government decides that since my party is unable to capture power to win the elections here, we will convert the state as a union territory and we will put a lieutenant governor to rule this. Rajangurikal sir, is it possible? It's possible. As per the way in which Jammu and Kashmir was converted as a union territory and how the Supreme Court endorsed that. We all expected the Supreme Court to be much more judicial in interpreting the constitutional provisions, but alas, in many other cases, it happened that here also the Supreme Court failed the Constitution. So, coming back to the cess, so the so-called 24% of expenditure is actually the amount which the state deserves through the dispersal of the revenue, but the center is keeping because the cess and surcharges need not be shared with the state governments. This is the fiscal scheme at the center. Now think about the quantum of surcharge and duty and cess that has been mopped up. I will give you a small statistics. 7 or 8 years back, the total amount which used to be garnered by the union government in the form of this particular head of account was something like 25,000 crore, hardly. You know what is the amount now? Anybody has got? 7 lakh crore. 7 lakh crore. That means the Finance Commission recommended 42%, effectively comes down to 29 or 30%. So even the 24% expenditure which the center claims to be bearing is actually a eyewash. This is what I am going to stress on that. Now, how to deal with this situation? Now, you know the number of universities in India. It should be something like, say, 1,100, 400. And out of that, something like 70 or 80 would be private universities. Then some 60 or 70 would be central universities. Right? 300 plus. Okay. So the large chunk of universities have been built by the state governments. So the agony, the pain that has been borne by the central government is negligible compared to the efforts that had been put by the state governments. If you take a cumulative investments that have been done by states like Kerala in education, it would be a huge figure, a mind-boggling figure. It would be a case in other states also. See, all these investments, efforts, initiatives that have been invested for generations together are being taken over, hijacked by 3 pages or 4 pages that's been presented in the Indian Parliament. This is the real story of this so-called higher education bill. Now, how to go about? That is something which we all need to put our heads together. I don't have a solution. In Parliament, we can only speak, we can only put up amendments. But this is a time when I said that when this higher education bill have impact that will take out the soul of the higher education, which will turn India into a place where academic fraternity need to be more or less sterilized, and the critical thinking or evaluation that needs to be there in any arena of education needs to be doused. What could be the future of this country? How are you going to conduct the discourse of the country? Higher education is one area where you ignite the minds. All those ideas, let me just underscore that. All those ideas, concepts, theories that would have made drastic changes in the societies would have emanated from universities. All those. The moment you decide that, you need to plug those ventilations, the ideas will evaporate. The universities will not be places where people ideate and come with concepts which could change the livelihood, the public discourse of the society. So the precatory effect of a piece of legislation like this on our society, on even the democratic fabric of the country is very huge. I am one person who always believes that the unity of this country can be maintained by three ingredients. First is democracy, second is federalism, third is secularism. This is my view. I know many of you may not agree with me. But these are the three verticals on which the unity of this country remains. So think about a piece of legislation which have got huge impact on these three pillars, because you are going to dent the federal nature of this country. This is going to have tremendous impact on the democratic discourse. And third, even the secularism. Why I say so? Most of the time I am positioned in Delhi. The other day there was an article in New York Times, I think, which was published by Times of India also, which said that Chinese universities are flourishing. Even most of the American universities are lagging behind. There is a huge surge in the excellence of the Chinese university. This is an article by New York Times, not by any Chinese speaking daily or anybody who is supposed to be close to a Chinese establishment. This was published by Times of India, not by any left-wing purpose, not even by Hindu, I can tell you that. So even Dr. Govinda, even people may have an objection to Hindu, that's what I'm saying there. Why it has happened? India is nowhere in the picture. I'm not surprised. When your focus is elsewhere, I even tweeted that. Look at the syllabus of our universities now. In Delhi University, what is that Vedic science or something like that? All these Vedic aspects has come to a research institute in Madhya Pradesh, plundered something like 5 crore or 6 crore, researching on the qualities of cow dung and cow urine and milk to cure cancer. Don't be surprised. This will be part of the syllabus for those science students. Even the COVID time, you know, how people were applying cow dung on your body to make sure that this COVID will not be affected. So the syllabus, now if you look at the history, all good things have been done by the Hindu Rajas, all bad things have been done by the Muslim Rajas. Historical perspective need to be dealt by those erudite persons who are on the stage now. But seeing the syllabus, I was surprised. I was just looking at those people who were appointed in JNU, some 160 people. Many of them are much more well versed in, what is that, Vedic science. And even here in this bill, there is a reference. Bharatiya knowledge. You shouldn't miss that. You shouldn't miss that. Even Bill has mentioned about that. I note down something here. VBSA Clause 9, authorized to prepare national roadmap for promotion of Bharatiya knowledge, language and arts. But there is no safeguard for regional or linguistic presence, cultural diversity or scientific temper. It's a part of the bill. So the direction has been given by the bill. The content has been naturally incorporated in this. So I feel that this piece of legislation, which I oppose tooth and nail, will not be helpful to not only the states, but to the academic community, the generations, to the youngsters, and will not be in any way helpful to a country which wants to emerge as a modern nation. So, registering my opposition, I fulfill my obligation of completing my keynote address in this seminar. Thank you very much.